You've probably heard the quote, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." It's become one of those things people say at dinner parties, and maybe they'll repost to their stories in a sort of motivational graphic. And because we've heard it so many times, most of us think we understand it. Hello, and welcome to Fail to Win, a show where we love to make mistakes and learn from them so you can turn your passion into profits and live life on your own terms. I'm Amy van de Putte from FastForwardAmy, your host and coach, and I'll bring you a new episode with simple strategies every Tuesday. I thought I understood it too. Turns out I was wrong. 10 years ago, when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I was in my early 20s and surrounded by my family and my friends. I had really big dreams. I wanted to build my own business. I wanted to go online, sell passively, all of that stuff. In the long run, I wanted to host masterminds. And I really, I was kind of obsessed with what I saw everyone in the US doing, the big names like Tony Robbins stuff. And those were things that most people around me in Belgium had never really considered. So I want to let you in on something that happened back then. At a certain point, I wanted to hire a coach. I wanted to hire a coach because at the time I was running my own business. I was also still in university. Everything was getting to be a bit much for me. I was very overwhelmed. And I noticed that because I was supporting so many other people, I'd kind of had the reflection of, if I'm supporting so many people, if I'm pouring from my cup, I need to hire someone who can pour into me and who can help me actually take better care of myself and make better sound decisions instead of just only taking care of others. And so when I told my family I was going to hire a coach for, at the time, this was like $250 and I was not making a lot of money. They basically told me it was irresponsible, quite stupid. And they kind of said I was wasting money on someone else when I could be able to figure it out myself. And I remember just at the time thinking and respecting my family's opinions, but also knowing this is the right move. I know I need help. I don't actually want to figure it all out myself. And I felt like I really needed to make that decision, but nobody around me believed that. And I think this is one of those first times that I can vividly remember that I felt what it cost to be not just the most ambitious person in your room, because I'm not saying my family is not ambitious, but to be the only person who sees your vision and who understands and supports you in that vision. And in Belgium, and I say this with a lot of love for where I'm from, and a lot of listeners on this podcast are from Belgium too, but many Belgian people are not as open to investing in personal development as people are in the US. Coaching, masterminds, paying for your growth, even seeing a therapist. For a lot of people, it can still feel really strange, taboo, not done, maybe even suspicious and especially weak, because the way we are raised in Belgium, not everyone and not everywhere, but stereotypically, a lot of people are raised in a very individualistic mindset of like, you've got to figure it out yourself. You should be smart. Don't ask too many questions. Just basically get your shit together and don't be weak. And so what happened is I wanted to hire that coach, and my environment didn't understand or didn't support me. And I didn't get the approval I was looking for to make that decision. And so I had to make a choice. I could wait for the people around me to understand my vision and where I wanted to go, or I could do it anyways. And I decided to sneakily and just not tell anyone to take the different, scary path, investing in myself, spending money on online courses, having that coach, challenging myself. And over the next 10 years, I have started to understand what the different room rule actually means, not just as a motivational quote, but as something you can really feel in your body. And so every year I make an episode about this topic, usually around the time that I go to LA to the mastermind I'm a part of, around the time I'm hosting my own retreats. And the reason that I don't just repost an old episode is because every year I learn something new and I go through these different seasons in my life as well. So some years I feel like, I'm thriving and I have the best friends and the best entrepreneur friends and the best relationship. And other seasons I also go through periods of like, hey, shit, what am I doing? I'm having to figure out stuff again, or maybe I've outgrown some people. And that never means that you're better than other people. Just that for me, what it feels like is sometimes you just get to this point where you feel like you're on a different wavelength. And this year has been a different wavelength year for me. And I'm gonna reposition myself on my chair And believe it or not, I prepped this episode, and as I'm recording this, I'm going to be really honest with you and be very, very vulnerable, because that's what I've been doing on this podcast forever since I started publishing in 2020. This has been one of those years where I've lost and chosen to leave some friendships. I have made incredible new friendships, and I've also struggled to feel connected to people. Not because I'm not blessed. I have the most amazing friends and family. I love them so much, and I'm so grateful for them. But sometimes when you have a brain, like my brain, and maybe you have this too, like my brain goes, 5 times as fast as some other people I know. Again, not better. I don't actually always wish that on other people. I am apparently quite intelligent, don't always feel like it, but because of the intelligence and the high sensitivity and the fact that my brain tends to work in like 5 rooms at the same time, sometimes I feel a bit weird. And feeling weird, feeling like you don't belong, can be quite exhausting. So for me, it's been a year of having to let go of some things that weren't serving me anymore. Also a lot of hurt and sadness and grief I had to work through. But also something I had to become really careful about. And actually, that is a thing that I want to talk to you about this year. So if you're interested in my previous years, just look it up, like average of the 5 people, or why I invest in masterminds and go to events, all of that stuff. I've made a ton of episodes about this. But this year, I want to add a layer I haven't talked about before, because there's a real difference in how I used to perceive this. So in general, there is, in all of the people I coach, and I've now coached over 8,000 people, and I've gone through 10 years of entrepreneurship myself, I see a very big difference between entrepreneurs who are working from their ego and who are often at a ceiling in their income versus entrepreneurs who continue to grow. And so what kind of is something that everyone who continues to grow has in common, and I see this in the rooms I'm a part of and the rooms I facilitate as well with my own masterminds, is that the people who love to be the stupidest person in the room, who love to learn from people who others might perceive as intimidating, are usually the people who will continue to grow. And I've had this as well. When I was a beginner, I would feel really intimidated walking into a room or feeling like a failure. I remember when I invested in a mastermind in the US, the first time I was like, I had so much fear of failure because I was so intimidated by other people, and I felt like I wasn't hitting the bar. And over the years, this has gradually shifted to me really feeling inspired and actually craving a room where I get to be the stupidest person in the room. Because I've learned in these past couple of years that when you are the least experienced person in a room, that is actually one of your fastest ways to grow. Not necessarily because of the strategies or the tactics that get taught, but because of what actually gets normalized, what becomes the new standard. We don't just learn from the speaker, from content, from strategy. I believe we absorb standards and beliefs from the people around us, often without even realizing it. So for me, what has shifted is the sense of what's possible. When I see someone like Lewis Howes speak or Jay Shetty, I don't necessarily remember what they're saying usually. I'll remember how they are and what they've normalized and the things that they've accepted and that they just don't have resistance around anymore. And so for all of us, a big chunk of how we behave and what we strive for is shaped by the rooms we are in. And so if you want to change what you think is possible, one of the fastest ways you can do that is to change the room you're spending time in. And so this is why I invest multiple 5 figures every year into my own development. Other people, I've noticed their accountants are really weird about them investing a lot in themselves. For me, it's a no-brainer. I go to masterminds in LA. I spend money on the flights and the hotels. I spend money on coaches who are further than me. I'm currently being supported by a bunch of people. I go to retreats with people who have businesses I want to learn from. And it's not because I'm chasing status or something. It's just I feel what happens to my thinking and my behavior and my standards when I'm around people who are operating at a higher level. It shifts really, really fast. And some of these things I've mentioned in those previous episodes, but most conversations about the different room rule, as I like to call it, they focus on finding better rooms. And sure, that is important and keep doing that. But I want to talk about a side that is a little bit harder to talk about that I often actually get questions about. Sometimes you are in rooms you cannot easily leave. You might want to leave, but maybe it's not possible, or maybe you just don't have the willpower to do it. Think of old friend groups, family, even your partner. And a while back, I was spending a lot of time with someone in my personal life who is basically playing a much smaller game than I am. I have no judgment toward this person. They're living their life on their terms, with their beliefs and their history and what I call their backpack. But the gap between where they are and where I am operating currently was very significant. And what I started noticing is that the constant contact and their limiting beliefs was affecting me a lot. Not in an incredibly big, obvious way, but I would just notice finishing conversations, feeling a little heavier, feeling like things were harder. I would make myself a little smaller, and I would catch myself adjusting what I said, or dreaming less big, or not speaking things aloud. And so what I was allowing myself to talk about aloud, I wasn't saying that anymore. I was just basically shrinking because it didn't land well in that dynamic. And then I was talking to one of my new friends, because I've been lucky enough to connect with a lot of new friends as well. And I still have a lot of my old friends. I want to say that I'm very, very privileged in by how many people I'm surrounded with. Sometimes it's just a struggle to find where you belong. And the fact that you're here listening to podcasts put you in the top percentage of people who also strive after self-development and stuff. So you are probably like this. So my Dutch friend said something to me that I've never forgotten. I'm going to say it in Dutch and then I'll translate it to English. She said, let op dat je je niet gaat enrollen in iemand anders hun wereld. So basically what she said is, watch out that you don't get enrolled in someone else's world. This can happen in coaching, this can happen in friendships. And what she said really hit me. Because what she was describing happens so quietly that you almost don't notice it. So imagine you've worked really hard to create a new standard for yourself, a new normal. You've got a new baseline, for what you expect from your life and your business. This could be, for some people, this could be you've normalized flying business class or going to a nice hotel where you get service. For someone else, this could be buying bio vegetables instead of normal vegetables or something. And then someone you care about starts pulling that baseline back down. Not on purpose, just by being who they are, where they are. And so if you don't pay attention to when this is happening and when you start compromising yourself, you are going to start making your ambitions smaller. You're going to start downplaying your standard, and your desires, you're going to make them more acceptable, more like theirs. Maybe you recognize this. Maybe you have really big goals, but somewhere along the way you started filtering them through, whether the people around you could relate to them. I once grew quickly on Instagram, and I had a friend who wasn't growing as quickly on Instagram. And I think subconsciously, because she wasn't growing, I started limiting my own growth. Something like that. Maybe you have a partner who doesn't think as big as you, who doesn't get your dreams. So you start softening what you want. You start not saying what you want. I think this even happens to kids. In Belgium, we teach them to not say what they want. And to be very, to talk about it in a very roundabout way. I would love to teach my kids in the future to actually say what they want, and to live in a way that they can constantly voice what they want and to not make that smaller. Don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but that's one of those things where I don't want to unteach them to do that. Maybe you have friends who don't talk about ambition, money, career, growth. So you've stopped bringing it up. Maybe your family has raised their eyebrows enough times when you talk about something that you've started believing your dreams are too much and you just shouldn't talk about them. The problem here is that 85% of the thoughts and things we say in our brain, I read this somewhere, are repetitive. So if your brain is filled with positive stuff, there's going to be positive stuff. But when your brain is filled with that's too much, it's too loud, don't dream as big, let's just, be humble and play a normal game, that's what's going to be inside of your brain 85% of the time. I believe you're not too much, but the room you're spending time in might be too small. You're not too much, the room is too small. And I want to tell you what it feels like when you are in the right room. I was just in LA with a group of women, my friends now, entrepreneurs, serious builders, all people who support each other and someone hit a really big business milestone they've been working towards. It's actually one of my friends. She hit her first million year. And the reaction was, let's go to Cartier and let's go and buy you something to celebrate. Not a remark of like, oh, do you think it's going to last? Or aren't you worried about the workload? Or do you think this is going to, last forever? Like stuff like that. Just like, oh my God, so amazing. We're so proud of you. Let's go celebrate. What do you want to buy? And this might be a materialistic example, but it's more like genuinely wishing other people the best. And this is what the right room does. It makes winning feel so normal that you can't not win. It makes your goals feel like the baseline, not like something you have to be really careful about saying it out loud. And I believe this matters more than almost any strategy or tactic or 2026 strategy tactic you can learn, because when you can't see what's possible, when you don't really have a reference point to believe something, your brain really struggles to build toward it. But when you're around people who are already doing what you want to do in that room, something will shift, because you will stop spending energy and brain space on wondering if it's possible. You just start figuring out how you can make it happen too. And I've seen this happen with clients over and over. A woman joins a mastermind thinking she's buying a strategy program, but 6 months later, it's actually not the strategy that changed her life. It's the things she learned from other women and the energy and the support and the drive that she got out of that room, where women not just prioritized their business, but also their body, and where they didn't downplay their ambitions. So the reason I recorded this episode is because I hope you keep seeking out rooms that make you feel like the dumbest person there. And I hope that you'll experience that discomfort as a signal that you're in the right place. And also watch out for the rooms you can't easily leave. And that doesn't mean you have to get everyone out. I know it's not always possible. But what you do have to do, like one of my other friends told me, is you have to stay really conscious about not letting someone else's world quietly become your no ceiling, by not letting someone else's low frequency impact your high frequency. Because remember what I just said, your dreams are not too big. They're not too wild. They're not too ambitious. You're not too much. But the room you might be sitting in might be too small for the greatness that is inside of you, and you are allowed to leave and step into a new room. Now, I'm currently in Ibiza, and tomorrow I am welcoming my self-made millionaire clients to this retreat. We host this every 6 months in different locations across Europe, always in the sunshine. And all of the women joining me on this retreat are women who have chosen deliberately to not get into a room that makes them comfortable, but to be in a room that challenges them to their highest standard, a standard that they can't really find anywhere else. A room where it's normal to want to build and to have the goals and to have the drive and to really, kick that ambition up a notch, and to also prioritize really having your richest life, because having a rich life is not just about what's in your bank account. This is a room where it is normal to invest in a personal trainer, to want help in your household, and to not carry everything alone as a woman. This is a different room rule in action. And if you're currently feeling like you'd like to be in a different type of room, I want to invite you to mine, because I have 2 of them. I have my Self-Made Millionaire Mastermind that includes one-on-one coaching with me and the retreats and group coaching. This is for women who want to scale towards 1 million and beyond. And then I have my Gold Mastermind as well, which is the highest level of my business club, where we have all women who are scaling towards their first 500K a year and beyond. We're starting to delegate. We also host physical in-person workshops, dinners. So both of these rooms are incredible, and they have the same principle. All women who are done shrinking, who are done compromising, women who want to normalize being rich in its truest definition, having a bank account that matches the business, that actually matches the body, like having it all. So if you want to know more about my masterminds, just send me the word mastermind on Instagram at my FastForwardAmy account. I'll set up a one-on-one call, we'll get to know each other, and we'll have a look at whether one of these rooms is the right next step for you. Or even easier, click the link in the description and just fill out the application form, and I'll get in touch with you, okay? Talk soon. And remember, don't shrink yourself. Just get into a bigger room.